morning.
Good morning.
You're good. It's recording. Yep.
Okay. Good morning. I'm John Anzavino. I'm Chair of the Go Virginia Region 6 Board. And we welcome you today to our Executive Committee meeting. First call of business is call to order, which I've already accomplished. And now we'll have a roll call of attending members.
John Anzavino,
Present.
Jeff Sapersky,
Present.
Jackie Davis,
Present.
Joel Griffin, and Jan Urquhart. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Public involvement. Are there any individuals not on the agenda who would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public involvement component of the meeting agenda. Move on to our consent agenda. First item is an action item, the approval of the February 12th, 2024 minutes. Everybody got a chance to review those?
I move approval.
Jeff, thank you. Moving to approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I've got a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved in February 12th meeting. Information items, Mr. Ginger. Project pipeline updates and financial report.
Yes, this will be brief. So you have the financial report in your packet. Just in terms of the pipeline, so where we are now currently with the allocation for this fiscal year, we had 2 projects approved at the state board. That takes us down to $724,681.04 that we have for projects for the rest of the fiscal year. If we were to approve all the projects today, we would actually go over our 250 allocation for planning grants for the fiscal year. So that's something that we need to think about as we get further into the agenda. But if we approved all of them up to the 250 limit, that would take us down to $475,538.04 for the rest of the fiscal year.
All right. Any questions for Ian on the financial report? Any discussion on the financial report? You know, I think what this, Ian and I had a discussion about this last week and actually earlier this week. And what this really is going to require on the part of our board is a little bit more careful planning and working with prospective applicants to make sure that we've got money distributed throughout the year as best we can. You know, the fact that we're demanding all of our funds in the first half of the fiscal year, almost all of our funds that have been allocated, is good news for Go Virginia. Okay, that means good things are happening. Yet at the same time, with the project pipeline that we have, there are a number of projects, if you've had a chance to review those, that I think are worthy for consideration and will help other parts of the region. We're kind of getting urban centric. If you can identify the I-95 corridor as part of our region as urban centric, we have to be a little bit more deliberate in allocation of our funds to benefit the entire region and to make sure that projects later on in the year that are worthwhile projects are they have available funds. So Ian and I have been discussing it. That'll be a subject for future meetings, but let's just keep that in the back of our mind. Any thoughts on anything I've just said?
Well, just to add to that, to give you guys an idea, because you're obviously not, you know, on a day-to-day, you're not as in tune with what that would look like from a project perspective. And really, in the time that I've been here, what I've tried to do is bring.
Sorry.
That last screen.
Just get his computer. Keep going, Ian. Keep going.
There you go.
Did it get?
No, I didn't get it.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
All that talk about Cheerwine, you guys.
That's all excited.
The chair one is very jumpy stuff. If you haven't experienced it, if you ever get down in North Carolina, try it out. It's really good stuff.
Maybe that's the thing, you're not supposed to drink it in Virginia.
It's better. It's only really good out of a bottle.
Yeah.
You think so? Or fountain. Any soda's better.
It's gotta be a bottle in an ice chest in the front of a gas station.
She's made
a lot of
stipulations.
That's like the.
You've been to rural North Carolina.
I'll
Yeah.
wait for Jeff.
I was thinking about a drink. I wasn't thinking about a soda under those conditions.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all didn't suspend discussion.
Yeah, we
because-
would.
Yeah, sorry.
We had a side discussion.
You might want to look down
That's the least of my worries.
your device.
I'm glad I have an extra 167 pages.
Yeah, there you go. We need it. So, I didn't bring any Lysol wipes.
Carry on, sorry.
Well, the only point that I wanted to make really is that if, you know, if all these projects are approved, we get down to the 475 number, I mean, really, that's two projects or that's one big project. So trying to get to a point where with projects that are not planning their implementation projects, they do have a larger dollar sign. So as opposed to doing 7-8 projects a year, that means a few projects a year. So I just want to make that point, and that's a discussion we need to have at the council level as well.
I mean, it's like, honestly, it's like any other business. You can't. You gotta keep powder dry for the balance of the year, and you gotta pay particular attention to really large projects. Cause it's eating up, a resource that I'm with John. I think we don't wanna be out of business the last 6 months of the year.
Yeah,
It's a nice problem to have, though.
it is. Well, and previously we had the issue of not spending our money.
Yeah.
And we would roll over a ton. The thing to also consider, I mean, we have this conversation around site development pretty frequently. And we've only really had the one planning project at the West Point site, but the sites, for the most part, that we're dealing with in the region are outside of the scope of VEDP. I mean, we're talking smaller sites. These are not the sites that they're focused on. So I'm not necessarily saying that, you know, we need to keep a reserve just in case a site project comes in, but we have been having these conversations, particularly in the northern neck of the Middle Peninsula, where the localities find difficulty locating enough money to invest in a site. For us, I mean, we would need, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to really make any kind of impact on a site if we're able to match some local funds, match federal funds. So that's something that we also, you know, need to kind of be cognizant of.
And I know that there are a number of projects involved in, or coming in the Middle Peninsula. You know, the Middle Peninsula and of course the northern neck, as rural areas move a little bit more slowly. But you know that. And, you know, we've had it, the sake of Denver and Middlesex. As soon as the board of supervisors turns over the land, we will have a site for an industrial site, do some work on. You know, we've been Middle Peninsula, we've been working, so topic on the agenda of our board today, down in Middlesex DEA level, the blue fat catfish grant, planning grant. And that doesn't sound very exciting to folks, but it's a big deal if you're a fisherman. And you've got the blue catfish eating everything in its path. And it has been a focus at the state level, but they haven't put any money behind it. And so we're trying to get our watermen involved and engaged in trying to come around to being more aggressive with catfish fishermen. And also to process it, or process the catfish and market it better, which the state's done nothing with, but wants to do something with, but won't put any money behind. So in any event, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline for our rural areas, but we take so long to develop anything down there. I mean, it's just sad in my opinion. Various parts of the Commonwealth that it does, but it's the reality of the situation. Okay, anything else on topic about project pipeline updates and financial report?
The only thing I'd say, John, is sort of getting ahead of ourselves, but if we end up doing, creating an application review committee, you know, the forward-looking part of what we're talking about here should be vested in that committee.
Good thought, good thought.
Yeah,
Appreciate
that's
it.
good.
Yep. All right, so let's move into our application discussion and determinations. All of these are action items for consideration today. Want to welcome all of you folks who will be presenting to us and asking for our support in your projects. First folks up are the economic impact analysis for Revere Ecological Center and complementary entrepreneurial ecosystem planning grant, which is Catherine Van Noy. And is that Michael? Michael, and
Yes.
my apologies.
No problem.
So you have about 20-25 minutes to make your presentation and respond to questions before we consider the application. We welcome you taking your time. And if any board member would like to ask a question during the presentation, just jump in. It may prolong the discussion a little bit, but it will get the question answered at the right time. Okay, so floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Excuse me. So my name is Michael Ann Manchester, and I am the Executive Director for Revere Ecological Center. Today I have with me Catherine Van Noy with Mill Creek Creative, who is working with us on grant associated activities. Next slide, please. Our mission at Revere is to create a co-working space in the heart of the Creative Makers District that serves as a regional and global magnet to accelerate water research, environmental education, and innovation. We are in the early planning stages of bringing the center to the Embry Power Station in Fredericksburg on the banks of the Rappahannock River. Next slide, please. Our grant is for planning through a feasibility study needed to analyze and prioritize industry demands, validation for future implementation grants, produce preliminary data, and offer proof of concept. Project deliverables include an economic impact analysis, methodology and dashboard designed to track key performance indicators, dissemination materials to facilitate partnership development, and digital platform and launch plan for a virtual center. Next slide, please. Using the virtual platform, Revere Research and Innovations will become accessible globally, engaging community members to directly inform entrepreneurial programming and promotions, design decisions, and workforce needs at the proposed center. In short, the virtual center will be a space where collaboration will drive recruitment for the center and associated technological innovations that can start as quickly as the fourth quarter of 2025. This is well before we anticipate groundbreaking for the physical center and will foster a more immediate impact for the region. Next slide, please. The Revere Center will contribute to many goals outlined in the Fredericksburg Economic Development Strategic Plan by attracting professional and corporate office users, science and technology research and development, environmental education groups, conference attendees, and ecopreneurs wanting to experience immersive events at the center. Next slide, please. Our goals at Revere align with many aspects of the future vision for Fredericksburg. We envision the Revere Center functioning as an important partner in overall economic development and entrepreneurial ecosystem goals of the region. The city will be partnering with us on this Go Virginia Planning Grant and provide ongoing guidance to ensure that our center supports planning and economic goals in the best way possible. As noted in our application, the Stafford County Office of Economic Development is also collaborating with this project and will serve on the steering committee. Next slide, please. We've worked hard to ensure that the Revere Center supports Fredericksburg's comprehensive plan. From education facilities, clean water and riverfront access, to environmental protection and business opportunities, we align. And we'd like to ensure further alignment at our building site in the Creative Makers District of Fredericksburg. Next slide, please. We've already laid the groundwork to make this happen by engaging and assembling experts from long-standing, powerful organizations, experts who are well-positioned to guide the design of the center, the the Smart River Initiative, and Ecopreneurial Ecosystem. Drive educational programming at the center, recruit research and development technology into the region, and evolve with technological advances into the future. Next slide, please. Fortunately, we already have an active community dedicated to restoring the economic vitality of the region and the health of the Rappahannock, such as Rivers Region Entrepreneurial Ecosystem in collaboration with Fredericksburg Regional Alliance, Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, Friends of the Rappahannock, and Rappahannock River Basin Commission, and a large number of impactful organizations that are coordinated through the Rappahannock River Roundtable. The Revere Center will serve to accelerate their entrepreneurial missions. Next slide, please. There is an opportunity and benefit from co-working, conferencing, and education spaces that provide concentrated access to collaboration opportunities and emerging technologies to enhance work in powerful ways. Momentum generated by this vibrant hub of collaboration will in turn draw in more high-tech jobs, researchers, and educators into the region, and generate ecopreneurship through conferences, events, and immersive experiences. Next slide, please. One premise we want to underline and continue to demonstrate through the work of Revere is that environmental challenges create business opportunities. The center will support expansion of a network of influence to guide entrepreneurs and small businesses by integrating sustainable development into business opportunities that attract positive economic and environmental growth for the region. Next slide, please. We've looked at a wide range of centers that specialize in similar areas, supporting water research, education, and technology. And we found that these centers are economic magnets generating millions of dollars in job creation, public interest, commercial tech, ecosystem service savings, and increase in property values. Next slide, please. For example, and not so far from our own area, we point to a similar type of center which encourages entrepreneurship, innovation, and business development focused on a particular sector. The Dominion Energy Innovation Center supports high-tech entrepreneurs and small business owners driving innovation in the energy sector through clean energy solutions, and Revere will drive innovation in the water quality sector. We are in the process of exploring ways to engage with Dominion Energy Innovation Center to inform our progress toward a fully operating center. Next slide, please. And just to give you a feel for the scale of this sector, ecopreneurship is often linked to the triple bottom line, a well-established operational framework that considers people, planet, and profit. Developing solutions to existing and future environmental challenges is big business. The premise for Revere-based entrepreneurs and businesses will be to capitalize upon and drive this economic wave. Next slide, please. We look forward to exploring this collaboration with you, and thank you for your time and consideration, and are welcome to invite any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, and welcome.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Google took me on a Piggly Wiggly.
Marjorie's trying to get it.
I've been in more farm
farm
roads.
On our website.
I had the same thing.
She's in the
Not a
lobby.
problem.
There's no
Glad
lobby.
you're here.
I think she's in the wrong.
We have an extra package, Sarah.
We did.
Sorry, there's a wet one.
No.
I can deal with the wet one here. I've got my notes on that.
But she can have this. I can look at it on my phone.
Here, take that.
Here we go.
Oh, I got it on my computer,
Oh,
Okay.
so I'm fine.
you don't want to read Jeff's notes?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for an excellent presentation. We welcome your application. Do you have questions, comments from the executive committee meetings concerning the application? I do have one. and Jeff, I know you probably got a couple as well, but looking at your application, there's an indication that this benefits the entire Gova Community region. All the communities are checked off. You didn't touch on that in your presentation. How is this going to apply? How is your program going to benefit the remainder of the region, particularly the downstream Rappahannock communities?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Michael.
I don't mind.
That decision came about in a conversation that we had with Michael Corello from the what is it?
Rivers
The
Region
Rivers Region
Entrepreneurial
Entrepreneurial Ecosystem. And Michael has been really engaged with us in this project and talking about, number one, how closely he wants to work with us. Because we were originally thinking Fredericksburg as a center. But then Michael was explaining to us that his approach is to cover a broad footprint. And he saw us as an important participant in the water vertical, the riverine and freshwater system development. So to me, it felt like, and in fact, he was encouraging us to think broader in terms of how we might coordinate our activities with him in recruitment of potential entrepreneurs across the region who could then be working with us. Because we have a virtual center, and because even though we're gonna have a physical center, we can work with anyone, anywhere. And we also feel that because water quality is such an important factor in all businesses and all residents of the entire footprint, we felt like that made a lot of sense to us.
So is it anticipated that Michael would be your primary outreach person for the rest of the region?
Yes, we will work with them. And in fact, as we're building our steering committee, we want to talk to Michael and receive his recommendations as to people in other areas that we haven't touched yet that he could recommend for the steering committee. We allude to some prospective candidates, but we want that to be a broad body so that by participating in the steering committee, we can make more connections that way.
I might think that you could strengthen your application a little bit by maybe clarifying that and
Okay.
expanding upon that concept.
Okay,
You know, from our perspective downriver in the rural areas, I view this as, City of Fredericksburg Stafford application. That's
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with those communities, what's happening in the area.
yeah,
But when you mention that it's gonna benefit the entire region, you really have to touch on why it does that. It really doesn't do that.
uh,
And, I think, outreach to our area for innovative ideas and things like that.
yeah, and Mike,
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.
Now we have clue.
yeah, and
We had to get Gene.
And that really echoes exactly what we heard from Michael, and that's what inspired us to begin thinking about that. Because he said, I need to go out and talk to all of these communities. He said, there's good things happening out there. And he said, I want you to be at my side relative to the work you're doing. So
But if you'd work on clarifying that.
Absolutely.
That would be good. Jeff?
Yeah, just a quick question, Michael. You showed the slide there of all the players that are already in this space. Why are you all needed?
Well, in a lot of those different locations, like Brock Environmental Center is down in Virginia Beach, so that's more, like the Chesapeake Bay sector, but river systems are really important because they all feed into the Chesapeake Bay.
Mhm.
So the river and upstream locations for all of that we're doing really aren't as, kind of like considered as important. However, if we don't take care of our rivers, then the Chesapeake Bay suffers as well.
I guess my
So-
question's more along the lines of either virtual or physical center, all those other players that, that one slide where you had 40 up there. Is no one else scratching this itch that you all need? In other words, is your need to be a coordinator of all these, or like what's the niche that this is pulling together? Seems like there are a lot of people circling the airport on this exact issue. Is no one landing the plane that y'all are landing?
Well, and I think I can speak a little bit to like on the education piece, like there's a definite need for river systems and understanding. Friends of the Rappahannock does great work in Fredericksburg, working, and then all of their programs that they have, there's waiting lists for. So the education piece is really important.
Yep.
The research is really important, but then the whole ecopreneurship and bringing all of that to the center is what we're talking about here, so.
That's the
think that's it.
generative part.
I think that's it. The lens is ecopreneurship and innovation and technology associated with the environmental challenges.
Okay.
Versus many of them are led primarily by water or saltwater or environmental challenges, period.
Right.
So I think the nexus of this entire project was an entrepreneur who said, this is how good ideas happen. And so, and then focusing it then within that lens.
Are you all familiar, excuse me, are you familiar with the fact that we partnered with our Hampton Roads folks in Go Virginia?
Yeah.
Coastal resiliency,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of innovative ideas coming out of that. How does that relate to them?
Yeah, we've been talking about, and is that Wendy's project?
Yes.
We've been talking to Wendy, who was associated with that project, and trying to find a space where we can intersect. Primarily, they are saltwater, and then we are primarily freshwater too. So there's a great opportunity for collaboration and sharing findings.
Where does the Rappahannock become brackish?
Now, where does
You
it
cover
become
Brass.
right?
Like,
You know
Right
that?
about Tappahannock.
Yeah, the bridge. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're talking freshwater.
Yeah.
You're only talking to Tappahannock, correct?
Ah,
Good.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we need to think more about that footprint too. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, that's great.
Jackie, any questions?
I know that, I see that the, Middle Peninsula Planning District is, and I know he does a lot of work in that realm of water quality and things like that too. And I didn't know if Louis had been contacted.
Yeah,
He works with the multiple.
good point.
That's a great point of connection. We'll reach out to him.
And Essex is part of that freshwater area. That's what we're talking about.
That's great.
Okay. Okay. Jan, do you have any questions?
Not at this point. I think your points were well taken that it will do so much better at the state level if we can show a broader impact.
And also to that point, once we get that steering committee together, I think it would be a really powerful thing then to report back exactly how we built that out and the individuals with whom we worked and the spaces we touched.
And you mentioned, facility at near the Embry Dam,
Near the Embry Power Plant.
Embry Power Plant. I'm trying to remember where that is in Fredericksburg. Is that below the bridge?
It's, do you know where Old Mill Park is?
It's right there in Old Mill
Directly
Park.
adjacent to that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's the building that everybody loves and it's sat derelict for so long and everybody's
It's very
so
specific
excited.
on what you could do with it.
It's,
That's the old power, the old
That's
power
right.
company.
Power station,
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, over the years, I've heard so many plans for that building.
They're very specific on what they will let someone do with it.
Well, that'll be another gem for Fredericksburg, which I can remember the days when they were having to count pencils to make their payroll. So that's a good thing. Any additional questions from the board or from the executive committee members? Okay, we'll entertain a motion for approval or denial of the economic impact analysis for the Revere Ecological Center. Your motion approving the application?
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
I'll submit a motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion on the floor to approve the application with, I guess, adjustments as recommended by the executive committee. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jackie, thank you very much. Any additional conversation, comments in regard to the application? Okay, well, you call the roll, please.
John Anzavino,
Yes.
Jess Safarski.
Yes.
Jan Urquhart,
Yes.
Jackie Davis.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you have our support with those modifications that, as you presented to the state board. And would you please work with Ian?
Absolutely. And we wanted to just add to that point, we are very grateful to the staff. They have been fabulous in terms of conversations, the process. I've been doing this a long time with a number of funders, and I'm really, really impressed with the outreach and the participation. So thank you.
No, we appreciate those comments, and we already do that. Okay, well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Are we allowed to hang out?
If you'd love, yeah, you'd like.
Public meeting.
Yeah.
Tell your friends and family.
Okay, our next application up is the CyberBytes Foundation Cyber Titans Virginia Internship Program, which is Nancy Patillo and Marjorie Austin. I guess,
Marjorie is online, but it'll be Dr. White and myself here today.
okay, thank you.
Hey, welcome everyone. Or should I say, thanks for having us here. My name is Dr. Frederick White. I'm the director of the CyberBytes Academy at CyberBytes Foundation. And with me today is Nancy.
Nancy Patillo, I'm the Director of Operations for the CyberBytes Foundation.
Nancy, nice seeing
See you too.
you. As well, you know.
I hope so. I mean, she's, I always like to see Nancy. And then also on the phone, we also have Marjorie Osler, and she helps us with our grants and our contracts. And so we're here today to talk to you about CyberBytes, Cyber Titans, our Virginia internship program, which will make a significant impact in the cybersecurity industry, a key sector within the information and emerging technologies cluster identified in Region 6 Growth and Diversification Plan. Next slide. So here is our application information. And so the program is estimated to begin January 1 through December 31, 2025. The total project will cost close to $300,000, but we're only requesting about $100K from Go Virginia for planning. The remaining funds are match and additional leverage, and these funds will come from CBF, CyberBytes Foundation, DODTC, the Training Center, and then also the Bay Area Consortium Workforce Development. Next slide. So it's well established that there is a gap in the cybersecurity workforce. You can see some of the top 3 issues that have been identified for the last 3 years: IT talent, skill shortage, and retention. Moreover, security, cybersecurity, and privacy has been noted as the #1 issue. So when you begin to think about what are those top issues, again, talent, skill, and retention. We've also identified that as we talk to our academic partners, that there's a need to develop curriculum faster. Just to be responding to the evolving needs of the industry. The current cyber attacks are happening such that students are coming out and they're not always equipped to be able to deal with some of those attacks. I like this quote over here to the right, and it's from the National Partnership Coordinator at the Information and Communications Technology Council. It said the gap is not only widening, the gap is only widening. It's not narrowing based on what we have now and who we're already attracting to the sector. So diversity becomes really critical. And what we're saying is we've been tapping some of the same people, some of the same organizations. We need opportunities that are going to get out into some of those more rural areas, get out into the community, and engage and involve people who aren't already at the table. So when we look at IC Square and their 2023 cybersecurity workforce report, what they say is, and this is information from the employers, the industry, 24% of new cyber workers completed a cyber internship or apprenticeship before getting their first job in the sector. You say, well, why is that important? Well, 24%, that's good, but that's a low figure. We would want to have more people who are engaged in internships because of the value of those internships. They expose that participant, that student to the field. They ensure that they know what they're walking into. They ensure that they have the skills and the talent necessary to go in and do the job. and they also help with the retention. So the internships really speak to the top 3 issues in the industry. We also heard employers say that, you know what we really want is entry-level cyber work experience. And this can come from a bachelor's degree or a basic certification or entry-level education. So we need people who, when they come in, they're ready to go. They need to be educated, they need to be qualified, and that's what we hear from the field. And then just one more kind of comment there at the bottom. We know that interns who felt that their work duties were meaningful were 3.7 times more likely to accept a full-time job and stay there. So when we talk about retention, them having an opportunity to kind of be exposed to their work site, where they're going to be, it's important. The internship is a critical component of us being able to address this important issue. Next slide. So here's some information about our program and what makes our program special. First is our objective. We're really focused on empowering the next generation of cybersecurity professionals by providing hands-on experience, mentorship, and industry-recognized certifications, while building a sustainable talent pipeline to strengthen the region's economic resilience and competitiveness. We know that there are other people in the industry that offer some certifications, but we're saying certifications are not enough. In addition to the certifications, these students need mentorship. These students actually need that hands-on experience. They need to be touching the technology, playing with it, dealing with it. And that's what we're offering through this VIP Better Virginia internship program. You can see the priority clusters that we're focused around: professional, scientific, and technical services, and also information and data centers. And our goals, you're going to see these consistently: equip the interns with the tools they need to thrive. We don't want to just put them into the jobs. We want it to be a warm handoff. This is something that I've already been doing during my internship. I've already met the people. I already like the place that I'm gonna be working or have a potential to work after the internship. If they prove to be a great candidate, that more than likely may be the job that they walk into. That's gonna address the regional workforce shortage and build long-term economic resilience. And then also is going to foster inter-locality collaborations to position Virginia as a national cybersecurity leader. Just some statistics. The Virginia Employment Commission projected that the state's cybersecurity workforce will grow by 21% in 2024. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics anticipated a 33.4% increase in employment for information security analysts in VA between 2021 and 2031. These are the statistics that we're up against. It's a growing market, and we're trying to train and prepare students and participants to enter into those positions. Next slide. So an old African proverb says this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so we know that we accomplish more together. And so these are just some of the organizations that we've received letters of commitment from. Some of the localities, but in addition to those localities, again, we're also looking at Spotsylvania, Caroline County, and others. So this is just a short list. We couldn't put everybody on the list, but this is a short list. And we're continuing to engage with different private, public, and non-governmental organizations across Virginia. You say, Dr. White, you're just telling us that you're not engaging. Well, yes, we are. Because if you don't already know, CyberBytes Foundation has 3 core components. The Academy is one. A second core component of CyberBytes Foundation is its American Cyber League, which is a consortium of private, public, and non-governmental organizations, all focused on solving both government and industry problems. We focus and direct our attention to government partners, to industry partners, and academic partners. So we've already been building the network. What we're going to be doing with this project is leveraging that network, especially as it relates to internships, because we have to expose them to the field and what's hot, and then offer them opportunities afterwards. I see is there a question from the executive committee? So what are some of the key components? And we can talk about these key components. There's even more here, but we're gonna go through some of these key components and why they're so important. The first key component is we wanna ensure workforce development. We have to ensure that these interns are prepared. And so that's developing participants, their cybersecurity expertise with certifications like CompTIA Security Plus. Why did you put CompTIA Security Plus? Because that's one of the baseline certifications that you need to really enter the field. That's okay, we can deal with you. You have that foundational knowledge to bring you in as a information security analyst, which is kind of the entry-level job. We also going to be preparing interns for the immediate job readiness and the long-term career advancement. And all of these things are really addressing the regional skill gap to support high growth in the high wage sector. When you talk about, we were with about 200 high school students last month, and we were bringing them and introducing them to different aspects of cybersecurity. And one of the things that we shared with them, we gave them the flowery, this is what you can make if you're at the top end of the cybersecurity industry. And the eyes went big, like, wow, we can make that? Yes, you can. You're not gonna make that first day in the door. But this is an industry with the right certifications and the right experience. You can have individuals that are coming in and making $45,000 to $55,000. And as we broke down what it takes to just kind of have the basic things that you need on a month-to-month basis, it's about $4,000 if you want housing and you want to be able to drive and you want your insurances. That's when you can kind of say, all right, I'm gonna get off on my own. I don't need mom. I love you, but I can get my own place. I can buy my own food. These jobs are gonna prepare them to step out into the workforce and be able to positively contribute to the overall impact of the state. Two, they're gonna be promoting collaborations, and that's fostering partnerships. We've talked about those partnerships, some of the ones that we've identified, but our network of partners that are also gonna be engaged. We're gonna be leveraging insights and successes from our program to create a robust framework. So as we are doing this planning, we're also gonna be identifying best practices. Because ultimately, it's not just good if we create an internship program that's in and around the Quantico cyber region. We are creating a model that can be utilized throughout Virginia. That's gonna require engaging a diverse advisory board. And so we're gonna be very strategic about how we build that advisory board to make sure that communities are represented and engaged in this process. Another key component is the economic and the personal impact that we're gonna be creating. So our interns are gonna gain valuable career opportunities, the mentorship, and the professional development. That we'll see to. But that's gonna also attract cybersecurity firms and investment firms and boost the local economies. Right now, cybersecurity IT professionals and companies are looking for these professionals. They're thirsty for them to come out. That's gonna build a resilient community and address the cybersecurity workforce shortages. Finally, as a key component, we're gonna be fostering innovation and sustainability. We talked about what we're doing is creating a model, a template that can be utilized across not just our area, but across Virginia. So creating replicable and scalable internship programs in other regions, which will lay the groundwork for sustainable funding and future program expansion. Next slide. All right, so here's the internship pilot highlights. Just a couple things we just wanted to highlight. In this planning phase, our goal is to enroll 20 interns. We've already secured paid internships for 10, and we're securing the other 10. Our goal is going to be provide an internship at no cost to the student or the participant. And so that's our goal. And we're going to be able to do that through some of the commitments that we have with VTOP and other industry employers. Our program structure is an 8-week internship. We're gonna bring them in, they're gonna get engaged with the organization. They're also gonna receive training, and we're gonna be preparing them to leave the internship with an industry recognized certification. In addition to that, that means that all of their training materials are gonna be included. Again, no cost to the participant. And DOD and Bay Consortium is helping to secure that. And CBF is matching with the classroom space, all of the connectivity, all of the things that they need to make sure that we're providing a learning environment for these participants. We all know how important that mentorship component is, and we're gonna be working with our local partners to ensure that that mentorship component is in place and that we're providing valuable mentorship and hands-on cybersecurity training. You've seen those goals before. We just keep those goals in front of our face because again, that's what we're working towards, equipping our interns, addressing the regional workforce shortage, and fostering those collaborations that are gonna support our state. So here's our Go VA and Match Down plan. You can see the amounts that are coming from the Go VA and then also the matching amount. This does not include, again, those additional funds that are coming from the additional leverage. But in phase one, what I'll go through is just some of the milestones here with you. In phase one, we're really gonna be focused on kicking off the program and mobilizing the advisory board. It's gonna be so critical to have the right players at the advisory board because they're gonna be providing feedback from those communities of interest. In addition to mobilizing the environment, the advisory board, we're also gonna be mobilizing the ecosystem. Again, we have 10 or some additional students that we will get funded. We offer internships at no cost to the student, but mobilizing those networks is gonna be important. And that's gonna be our focus for that first quarter. The second quarter, we wanna kick off the pilot, again, an 8-week pilot. And so this is gonna be pilot recruitment, actually working now with our advisory board members in those communities to recruit the interns, to pull them into the program, identify those spaces and places where students currently are and bring them into the program and then to actually conduct the pilot in quarter two. That may lead off into pilot 3, but pilot 3 is really gonna focus around synthesis, analysis, identifying best steps, and then thinking about what do we do next to position ourselves and others across the region to be ready to implement a similar Virginia internship program. So this is all of the information. Let me open it up to, I have again here Nancy and Marjorie. Start with you, Nancy. Any additional information that I missed that we want to share?
Yeah, so the only points that I do want to add in is that we have already started partnering with King George and Caroline County. They had their 2 cyber teachers come up to our facility about 2 weeks ago. And we're trying to work with them on how we can either get students from this area to the program or working with them in partnership to, well, they're definitely gonna be involved in the committees, but also how we can take the pilot program and put it into Caroline and King George County. So that is something that is a focus as part of the planning grant. And then the only other thing I do want to speak to is any of our partners that do utilize our interns will go through that VTOP training for employers. So they know the expectations of how they should work with the intern. So it's consistent across the board. I think those are the only 2 new things.
Excellent.
And I'm not sure if Marjorie has anything to
Yeah,
add.
anything else to add, Marjorie?
No, I think you guys covered it all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, Executive Committee, we turn it back to you.
All right, well, thank you. Good presentation. Questions or comments from the executive committee concerning the application?
I'd like to understand if you could even go back to the slide with who the localities and the organizations you're partnering with. I'd like to really understand. And as a prelude to that, if you could profile your best student as far as at what age would you like them to come into a program like this? What would be your ideal?
The, so,
So many things.
yeah,
It's kind of twofold, real quick.
go
There's
ahead.
over 8,000 children that drop out of high school every year in the state of Virginia. So it's going to be designed where they can capture, because cybersecurity is more of a direction of a trade. You can have a degree or you cannot have a degree. And so we really want to make sure that we capture the high school students and give them an opportunity and a hope to have a meaningful career by getting them involved in the internship program, getting them a certification and kind of giving them that little boost to get over to the hump, to get to a different type, to have a different path in life. And then the second part is the college student, because most of these, at least now, I think they're changing it a little bit, but for now, they come out with a degree, but no certification. So they come out and they're not the top candidate because they don't have a certification. And so that's where that adding in the certification with workforce development is going to be huge, because they come out, they have a degree and they have a certification, so it puts them on the top of the pile of candidates.
I would also like to add, and in addition to that, this type of internship program is going to provide them not only with certification that will assist them with being placed in a job, but it also gives them hands-on experience, which you can read a book, you can go to classes, you can take certifications, but if you don't have that hands-on experience, which is what the employers are really looking for, that really does put them ahead of other candidates for these positions.
Yeah, I'll add. So when we start talking to the IT industry, to Marjorie's point, it's the hands-on and it's also being kind of complete and ready to go. And that's not just having the skills. Sometimes that's some of the softer skills that we might be talking about, like being able to present, to talk to a team. Yeah, I have the technical knowledge, but I can't function on a team. So the internship is gonna allow us to provide kind of meet the holistic needs of the individual and prepare them generally for the workforce. Forget about cyber, prepare them for the workforce, and then to make sure that they're cyber ready and they're prepared. Your question is difficult and Nancy started it and kind of hit it on the head, but it's difficult for me because we start training at 5 years old. We start bringing in some of the students and just introducing them to STEM and technology. And we kind of keep our hands on them as they develop through the process. And so by the time they get to high school, they have some of the information, some of the knowledge. This internship allows us now to be prepared them to be workforce ready. And that could be right after high school. It could be while they're in their college kind of pursuits, or when they graduate from college.
I'm a little surprised you've got Mary Wash and Tech, but you don't have you don't have the community colleges listed.
Germana did send a letter of
Mhm.
commitment, and I just got connected with RCC 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
when I met with Caroline and King George.
Mhm.
And they're on board. They're like, whatever you need, let us know. It just was not able to be put in before we had to submit the application.
But in terms of economic development, creating, somebody who comes out of this and they're gonna go to work
Yes,
with this
Absolutely.
certification. Their income, they're just qualifying for Alice at that point.
Mhm.
I mean, they're not,
Mhm.
this is not great.
right, right. This is the start.
Yeah.
It's the start. And to your point, Nova was at our facility 2 days ago. We was talking to their recruitment person, their IT person, and so to Nancy's point, we already have the relationships, the connections. We may not have been able to get their application, their letter in, but they're committed. They're ready to go. And it's just as simple as working with them to identify the student. I mean, who doesn't want to help us identify students that are going to be successful, right? So it's working with them to make sure that they're engaged and involved in this process.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Jeff?
Yeah, similar to the question asked for the first presentation. Is there not somebody already doing this?
Isn't there a program at Mary Wash? It's doing something like
There's a
this?
program in Mary Washington. There's also some other big players in and around the area that are working with some of the schools to actually go in and do education into the schools. The component that they don't have is the internships, that mentoring, that, okay, let me take the information that you have, the training that you have, the certifications that you have, and match you and prepare you for your workforce. There's nobody in that space. So, and there's nobody owning it, because it is gonna take a lot of time and resources in order to do it. It takes a lot of coordination. We're already positioned to do that because we've been developing those networks already with industries.
And
So
that's why
only
we
for the-
found it beneficial to partner with Sacrifice, because a component of our youth and adult is a work experience. We have to spend 20% of our money on youth work experience. So they already have the connection with industry, and we have the participants, we have the youth that need those we call them work experience, they call them internships. It's all the same thing at the end of the day. So that's why we figured that we could partner with them and help with supplying some students. It helped us a lot with those connections in the industry.
And a lot of the colleges have, they want to work, to only work with their students. They're very, rightfully, these are our students, we want to make sure we get them internships. But I do sit on the VTOP board, Rappahannock Work and Learn Collaborative with Dr. Jenkins, and that's great. And all the colleges have, their workforce development person, and they're trying to get them interns. But sometimes these kids are applying to, 10 slots and it's at 500 applications. So being able to have another option for either high school or college is not something that's being done by anybody else.
And I think the space is so large, you could have multiple people in it. It's like the workforce space. I mean, there's enough work for everybody to do, and it's still not gonna get done.
Right.
What I would just remind the council, well, executive committee, but all the rest of the council and abstentia, is we funded the program at EMW, the cyber certification program. And we recently funded, which is an ongoing project that'll close next year, some point, the Stafford County GQ project. So when we were having these conversations, initially we have concern around, is this a duplication of what we've already funded? What we found to be strong about this is that those projects, so the EMW project was all certifications. We found that certification level was too high for folks. And folks, there was no demand for it, so we didn't meet the metrics. For CompTIA, for that project with GQ or G3 Community Services in Stafford, there's a bit of a work-based learning experience component to that project, but it's really very heavily like students in, students out to get certified. So that's why we thought this would be complementary to that. Obviously, this is the planning, but if this proved to be successful, this could be complementary to what we're already doing from a certification perspective.
And we've already had some preliminary conversations with GQ and Green. He's interested. He's interested in engaging together, and he sees the synergy. So we'll continue those conversations.
Having hosted several interns during my career, not in IT, but having hosted them, knowing that you're trying to prepare them to enter a workforce is really important, because they often come out of school and they think, oh, it's gonna be great. And they don't have a clue as to what it's like to go to work in the real workplace, and that there are outcomes expected even for an intern. So I think it's beneficial, particularly in this area. Is there this is a planning grant, but measuring success, okay, is gonna be real important. I mean, how are you gonna do that? Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, we're gonna do it a number of ways. And we have to think about, again, what is it that we're looking for? So when you talk about measuring success, you have to define success. What does success look like? When will we be successful? Well, we will be successful by a number of factors. The first factor is how many of these interns are gonna actually get into the job. they have a job at the end of the internship, or they have a plan for the job. Do they have the certifications that they need? Are they prepared? Will they stay in the job?
Yeah, that's key.
Because like you pointed out, they may not at all know what it means to work a job. I'm thinking I'm gonna get this office when I go get a job. No, you get a cubicle, you get a desk, you know, those expectations. And so the more that we could acclimate them to what that real life is and what they can expect, the more successful we're gonna be. So we're gonna be looking at leading and lagging measures and continuing to ensure that we understand both from the employer and the industry, but also from the participant and the student, look at the success of the program.
We had in the financial services, publicly traded business, we had an expert come down 2 weeks ago and talk to our board about this and quantum computing. And it just scared the hell out of everybody. So this space is not going away. People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, we just heard the presentation. We haven't developed a plan yet. But no, that's, I like the practical element. Plus, I know employers love interns because it gets you subjectively the chance to test drive a child, not a child, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you gotta say, does this person have a work ethic? Do they have a work ethic or not?
When did getting older happen?
I know.
Dr. White did touch on it a little bit. So my background is actually in HR. I have 16 years in HR and 6 in operations. And teaching those, you know, not only they have their work-based learning, their certification, but really taking the time to teach them like how to send an email. They call them power skills now. They're soft skills, but you know, how to address conflict, like all of these, how to network, how to do your pitch, like how to talk about yourself, all of these HR things that I'm super passionate about is part of that program because they, you know, if you can educate them, you can skill them, but if you don't put them in different situations where interview skills, where they, you know, are learning these power skills is what they call them now, they can, you know, then they're not gonna be as successful. So really it's, you know, a whole rounded out program.
The thing of just showing up to work on time.
Right.
Late hours. And
101.
doing work and not on your
Right.
phone. That's a huge.
Or communicating, like what's going on, you know, or, yeah, like you said.
No, you
actually
cannot wear
coming
those
with-
flip flops.
Right.
They
You
are
know.
not office appropriate.
Right.
I have a question, because I'm new to this process, right, as it applies to this. Is the total budget you're requesting based on 20 students? If for some reason you don't recruit 20 students, does that impact, but I don't understand exactly quite how that works.
So,
Does it cost the same to do 10 as it costs to do 20?
well, you guys can answer that from your perspective, but in terms of our process, I mean, so we have, you know, our standard reporting period. You have to report on metrics. You have to show that you're achieving those metrics, submit a remittance alongside that.
Sarah, can you go back to our budget, the
If-
slide,
Your
the
slide, yeah.
Yeah, the planning grant, if you
Well,
look at,
hold on.
oh, sorry.
But
I thought you were done.
if you get to, if I talk too slow, but if you get to a point, where, and this was true of the UMW projects, true of a lot of our projects. If you are, I mean, underperforming is another separate issue, but, we have a lot of projects that return money to us. We've never had a project do a budget amendment and that they're like during the project, they're like, we're gonna give you money back. So, but at the end of projects, we have had money returned to us.
And by return, just
Um,
not spent, basically.
Yeah, cause it's all remittance based, so it just goes back to the budget that we have. But if we were deep into a project and we weren't going to meet metrics, then we would have to do some sort of extension, or we've never terminated a contract with them. So that's a super long-winded answer to your question, but
So staff monitors the projects, see if they're meeting their goals. They flag them if there's a problem, they have a discussion, they rectify the problem. And sometimes we get some money back, that's what it's.
And I know sometimes we've extended projects
Yes.
for various reasons.
Yeah, I mean, the GQ project,
Yeah.
we've extended that, the coastal resiliency project, and that's extended by like that's a huge project, so. We've extended that about 2 years. I mean, with planning grants, typically we never like to go into any project with the idea that we're gonna extend it. Particularly with planning grants, so we really do not like to go into really the year or a little less than a year is what we try to target.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, just to speak about ours, the funding for them to be paid and for their certifications is not part of what we're asking.
Additional questions from the executive committee? Comments? Ian, Sarah, any additional comments, questions? Anything we missed?
So I'm asking this one, like, I know this, but I'm asking this more.
Okay.
Okay, so all the.
Is it
interns-
about cheer
All
wine?
the,
Yeah.
all the interns are paid.
They will be paid, yes.
Yeah, okay, and then as an organization enrolled through VTOP, what is it, per fiscal year, you get 30,000 and up to 4 intern placements?
So we were certified before they made the changes, so I'd have to clarify because it was different
Yeah, it's,
before now.
I'm pretty sure now it's 30 and then 4 placements.
Right, but I have to just double check with Dr. Jenkins, but I'm pretty sure if you certified before, you were grandfathered in based on the older. Have to get clarification.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
But I guess the thing is that we're gonna find funding for for that other 10, but there won't be anyone not paid. If we have to do it to 15, then that's what we'll do.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I was gonna ask is, and I guess you would need to talk to her to clarify, but if you have an understanding as to where you guys are on that spend of that 30,000 that you can use in the fiscal year.
Yeah, so we won't use it except for this project. We won't be utilizing those VTOP funds for other things with the organization for 2025.
Okay.
So it shouldn't take away, it'll be maximized to the most it can under CPF.
Got one additional question. You mentioned during the discussion that this may be a model for the rest of the Commonwealth. And we've talked at the state board level, the regional council level, has talked about sharing of information. And how will you share this information across the state?
So we'll start with again, information is only as good as what you collect. And so that's where quarter 3 and quarter 4 are gonna be so critical and so important. We'll build, in my mind, I think toolkit. And when I say toolkit, what it means is the instructions to be able to implement, and then all of the documents, supporting documents or information you need to implement effectively and successfully. So ultimately, what we'll do is build a toolkit that, as we implement, we can also give them a toolkit that walks them through the steps that they would need to take to actually implement a successful program.
And I have a strong relationship with Emily, who's the cybersecurity director for BEDP.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't write a letter of commitment because this is for state funds, but she is very well aware of the program and our initiatives, being able to take that information and disseminate it out.
Okay, thanks very much.
And from the Go Virginia perspective, we've gotten way more into the practice of sharing projects, trying to pick up on projects. And information, so.
All right, additional questions, comments from the executive committee? Jackie, you'll be abstaining on the vote because you've got an organization matching. Okay,
I'll move approval.
Jeff, thank you for a motion to approve the planning grant for CyberBytes Foundation as presented.
I'll second.
Jan, thank you for a second. Any additional discussion? We'll have a roll call vote on this, Sarah.
John Anzavino,
Yes.
Jeff Sapersky.
Yes.
Jan Urquhart,
Yes.
Jackie Davis.
Abstain.
Unanimous.
Thank you all very much for a good presentation, answering all our questions and putting up with us.
No, we love it. We love the feedback.
Thank you so much.
I went to a boarding school for high school, pretty relatively strict. And there was a guy from Salisbury, North Carolina, who'd bring a case of cheer wine when he came back. And one of the really strict
dorm masters found this case of cheer wine.
Oh, man.
And he said, his name was Mr. Rendelman, I want to see you in the headmaster's office immediately. He, what I do? He said, just show up. So we went down there, sat down with his teacher and the headmaster, and he goes, so why are we here? He said, I found a case of cheer wine under Mr. Rendelman's, and the headmaster went, Mr. Rendelman, you can go. You can go. We're good.
Did that case come in little tiny bottles?
It did, it was like that.
Was it canned?
Yeah,
The bottles.
but he thought it was alcoholic, and
That's
this guy,
hilarious.
he caught this guy.
Yeah. My kids was excited about ginger beer.
Oh, right, yeah.
Well, we have our son is grown now, but when he was in high school, he worked for Roxbury Mills downtown, which is, a little, very sweet, no longer there, farm and garden store. And, he somehow managed to buy all the apparatus to make ginger beer.
Mm-hmm.
So one year for Christmas, he made my husband, who loves ginger beer, made him a bunch of ginger beer, which I think it took me months to get the kitchen floor to where it wasn't sticky. But what I found out later, because now my son is married with 3 kids, one in college, and later admitted to us that he also made beer. While he was at it. I'm like, no.
Now you tell us.
An internship.
Thanks for sharing that. All right, let's move on to our next application, our final application. This is the STEM EIC, Increasing Opportunities for After-School Programs Planning Grant. And we have Christina Clark, who will be making presentations for us today. Christina?
Good morning. You don't mind if I stand?
No.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Christina Clark. I am the founder and executive director for STEM Education Innovation Center. We have been around in Planning District 16 since 2015. We received our 501(c)(3) in 2018. Next slide. We're going to do introductions, the project, and then I will turn it over to Dr. Egberg, who will talk about the monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Our goal here is to provide an evidence-based after-school CTE program that can be implemented across the region. Next slide, please. Here is our mission. We have been doing after-school summer programming in Planning District 16 all the way up to Richmond, and it's to excite and engage our workforce of the future. Our vision is to reach 20% of the youth in our community through our after-school CTE program. Just staying on this slide, just 6 weeks ago, that is our 9th graders in the CTE program in Stafford High School. So we've already started the engagement. Next slide. Here are our collaborators. They are all via Zoom, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
I'll begin if you don't mind, Mylin. My name is Jim Eggenreiner. I'm a research professor at Virginia Tech in engineering, education, and natural resources, and run the Think of It Lab programs that introduce about 4,000 young people to physical computing and IT and IoT skills every year. And my teammate, Mylin.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Mylin Ho. I am the Chief Technology Officer of Gateway. And what we do is we provide an online platform that allows everyone, so in this case, our students, to seamlessly onboard and go throughout the entire journey of their experience in the pilot program and beyond in a very just helpful way where they can get organized with everything that they need all in one place. And we have been collaborating with Dr. Eggenreiter here at Virginia Tech through different initiatives, as well as ones sponsored by the Career Z Challenge, which is the Department of Ed's work-based learning initiative. And through that, we also partnered with STEM EIC as well on invention programs. So yeah, very happy to be here, and I'll kick it back to you, Christina.
Thank you, and I'll introduce one of our B-Top interns.
I'm Jack. I work with Christina as her marketing analyst intern, but I kind of do whatever she needs me to because I'm an intern.
It's all good though.
Yeah.
Imagine, would you ever thought you'd be at a Go Virginia
I did not.
presentation as an intern? Let's go. Next slide, please. These are our strategic partners we've been working with. We did a proof of concept with our partners at the Bay back in 2022, 2023. So this is not our first go around. What we are doing here is trying to make it evidence-based. So we create a framework a study that can be duplicated across the region. Micron Technologies provided a great letter of support. Goodwill Industries, we are a part of the Virginia Partner of Out of School, Dahlgren Outreach, Virginia Tech Invention, Virginia, the Rural Leadership Institute, and of course, Germanna and our friends at the Chamber. Next slide. So here we are. This is our region. When we first did this presentation, our presentation was talking about our out of school piece, where if we were to implement an after school CTE STEM program, where could we land? Throughout our whole region, I think we had 10 spaces. 10 spaces altogether. From the feedback of the state, they asked us to really clarify and really focus in on 2 clusters and also expand across the region. So Northern Neck CTE Center is one of the partners, Colonial Beach High School. Next slide. So here's our model. CTE right now is an in-school program. So if you're not one of those students that have the opportunity to be in a CTE program, you miss the boat. Here, we're now going to be able to offer after-school CTE programs via our platform. Next slide. So here's our model. Our model is to be able to put together prep certifications through our online platform, which consists of 32 different mini stackable certifications and courses. We'll be able to offer the personal finance and a work-based learning opportunity, which we'll be working with University of Mary Washington and Germanna and our high school students. Our high school students will be able to have work-based learning opportunities, and they will be able to teach our elementary school students STEM after school. Also, the BDOE workplace readiness competencies will be embedded in the 12-week program. But here is the best part of the program. Each one of the members will be a part of either Technovation Girls or Invention Virginia. So this will also allow them another way of putting together competencies onto their resumes, practicing their work-based readiness competencies, and presenting at a state level, all in 12 weeks. The off-ramp, that's where our friends at Gateway come in. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, because we are a part of this, we have been offered internships at Georgetown for any of our participants in this program. Next slide. So why is it critical? Next slide. Because we need to find ways to close those skill gaps. After school is a perfect place to do that. When we first did this, we had 40 students. We were able to recruit those students from the Fredericksburg Chamber Intern Festival. We had 68 students signed up. We had a waiting list. So that tells you the students want this. They're not in CTE, but they want to find another way that they can get industry level certifications and be able to be career ready at the end of their senior year. Next slide. So we talk about engagement, exploration, employability, and experiences. So that's bringing after school and CTE to the educators together and can streamline what's going on here. We have a letter from our superintendent at Stafford High School. That's how much we have a buy-in here, because they see the possibilities and they want to be on board with this pilot. So we will be piloting starting in January at Stafford High School with 40 youth. Northern Neck has given us 10 youth. So we will be piloting in 2 separate places within the region. When we're talking about career exploration and innovation and summer camps, Micron is there. Micron is just sent over. These students will also be a part of an innovation camp in the Northern Neck and in Fredericksburg this summer to keep that engagement going. We showed you the workplace readiness skills, the work-based learning opportunities, and the job readiness piece. Next slide. So this is our proposal. Is to create a resource plan from a joint community that's everyone involved to address the needs for after-school programs that can bridge skill gaps among middle school and high school. In Region 6 by offering after-school STEM CTE programs that promote STEM clubs. They'll have an opportunity to complete the industry recognized stackable courses and credentials that align with Region 6 industry priority clusters. Next. So what's their experience? What do they do? The gentleman on the left, he was a part of the first cohort. Every time we came together, we did something that was hands-on. We went on field trips. We even went to CyberBits. All of these organizations here in this room, one day will intersect and we'll be supporting each other one day. So these are the things that we have done. We give them a career-ready toolkit. They will have their LinkedIn account, their resumes. They'll have everything they'll need. So by the time they graduate with a standard diploma, they'll also have stackable credentials with them. Next slide. This is our platform. This is what it looks like. So students would walk, if you can hit the link, you can just see it real quick. It might be, PDF. But this is what the platform looks like. Each one of the students will have access to this platform. The widgets on the side will become active as we start working with our SMEs in the community, along with our CTE educators. So this is not going to be just STEM EIC. This is going to be done with a community team. Next slide. Here's an example of some of the courses. This is just a few of them. And next slide. Here is our timeline. As you can see, it's very aggressive because our goal is to implement next school year. And next slide. Those were our updates. Next slide. And all those letter of support should be in your packet. Jim, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you very much. I don't get involved in any project unless there is some opportunity for generalizability. And a major component of generalizability is having a monitoring, evaluation, and learning plan. And I'm of modern train of thought where MELP leaders should be involved at the very beginning of the project, hence our involvement in a planning, proposal, and resource development phase. So that's why I've been involved even in the development of this proposal. So we're setting our goals and objectives, establishing metrics and indicators, of course, but we're also developing a learning plan that allows for adaptations and enhancements and refinements throughout. We have an internal and external reporting process where we give all constituents opportunities to see what's happening, but also appreciate the learning that's underway and get feedback from them that contributes to not only generalizability, but scalability, replicability, and transferability as well. Next slide, please. Our final deliverables are specified in the proposal, but we'll have a refined curriculum prototype. Our online prototype will be further enhanced. We'll have additional online resources for our older students who are in the pre-apprenticeship mode. And by the way, those come from work with over 200 high school interns during the last year and a half, in which we've refined all of these things that we call, they were mentioned earlier as power skills. We call them durable workplace readiness skills. Durable has a definition of 7.5 years. So these are things that stick with a young person that make them successful. We'll have a recommended timeline for a broader implementation. We'll actually have not only the outcomes of our initial monitoring, evaluation, and learning plan will have a refined model for a full implementation with new metrics and indicators, reporting and learning. And then we'll have an established statement of intellectual merit as well as recognizable anticipated broader impacts. Next slide, please. This is more specifics about the key deliverables that you've had access to in advance, and I'll let you read those on your own. Next slide is a representation of some of our leveraged projects that contribute to this. I mentioned how our Invention Virginia and our physical computing programs already connect with, well, involving Invention Virginia, over 9,000 school-age students. And if we just take that subset of 4,000 students I mentioned earlier, they contributed over 25,000 hours of computer science and physical computing experiences. And something we're very proud of, but that's got the attention of some of our supplemental funders that are contributing to these leverage projects as well. And then Technovation, otherwise known as Technovation Girls in many parts of the country, provides similar opportunities. We've been helping to run that through 2018. Christina has been running it in the last few years, and now we're collaborating together to run that program. And then I'll let Christina wrap this up.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, team. That is STEM EIC, STEM After School CTE programs. Thank you very much for allowing us to get this far. Thank you, team from Ian and Sarah. Your feedback was very valuable. Thank you. Also for Jackie, who's helped supported us 2 years ago when we first did this project. And now I open it up to questions and for the team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation. Okay, questions from the executive committee concerning the application for increasing opportunities for after-school CTE and STEM? Any questions?
I guess my question is that you already do this, so what is the news, what is different from what you're already doing to what you're proposing to be done with this?
The previous project, once again, was done out in town. And that was because we did not have the buy-in from the schools. Here we are 2 years later. Because of our past performance, the schools are now saying, yes, let's bring it to the schools. And because of the feedback from the students, they traveled to us. That last thing they said is, we want you to come to us. So by now doing this at Stafford High School, we will be able to put it in school and get the support of staff and administration. Because for sustainability, we're hoping one day that CTE funds after school CTE.
And then I think I had my question when we did the review, the online platform that you talk about, the micro-credentialing. And my question was about, are they SHEV certified through the Department of Education? And when I looked at your thing, it says that they're course prep, that there's more, to me, that looks like it's prepping them for the certifications. It's not the SHEV certified certification. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And then we did have a slide, but we didn't put in here. But what we did is that we put the courses that we'll prep, and then we also put the certifications. I can say now that it probably is SHEV because the Suffolk County schools are currently utilizing this problem.
Do you have the SHEV certification?
I can get it and I can just call them. And also because it's now being utilized in another region, we know now too that we have that much more availability. And if not, as a planning grant, we can find out other resources that can step in the place.
Is
And
it
it's
even
SHEV.
stackable credentials? I know we're always, that's a huge thing. And you know, if they're industry recognized and recognized outside of our area, then there'll be more employment. And then my other was apprenticeships. You talked about apprenticeships, and I can tell you from my standpoint, apprenticeships are really tough to get, especially in the Northern Neck when you have smaller businesses. And you touched that you have the technical center as one of your partners. What businesses do you have lined up that are willing to do apprenticeships, and what industries are you looking?
That's why we're focusing on two of the clusters, one IT and data centers. Our biggest thrust is data centers. because we will be partnering, one with Micron, and we will also will be partnering with Nova, who has the #1 technician certification going on. We partnered with one other organization in Dumfries. Also, just doing our research, we know that we can reach out to other automotives who are looking at semiconductors, who are looking at other manufacturing interns.
What?
Christina, may I offer a clarification?
Please do.
I hope it was mentioned early in the slides, but what we're focused on is pre-apprenticeships. So these are mentorships, externships, and internships leading to apprenticeships.
So what industry, what businesses do you have lined up for those, especially here in the Northern Neck region, that I would be really interested in knowing who those are?
And I think through the feasibility study, we weren't able to bring that to the table, but we will find those industries, just doing an overview and seeing what industries were local to the Northern Neck and also to, was it Middlesex and some other areas, and really just doing a deep dive. And I think that's going to be a part of the resource project and the toolkit that we'll be able to set out throughout the region. And I know that there's answers out there and I know there's companies out there. We just need to be able to reach out and say, this is what we have out. In the interim, we do know that we've partnered, once again, with Micron. They'll have 600 apprenticeships available next year. And I know that's not local.
Right. That's Northern Virginia outside of our.
Exactly. But it's all coming. And that's the thing, we're leaning forward. We're leaning forward to prepare the workforce of the future.
Okay, maybe a little more specificity as to how you would impact, you know, you touched on all the localities in the Go Virginia Region 6 area. How you would, you know, provide this program to them.
Right.
There's not a lot of meat on the bone there, so to speak. You mentioned that you want to get this up and running aggressively for the next school year. You're talking about the 25-26 school year?
25-26, because it is a hybrid program and the platform is already available. We have reached out to the CTE centers and some of the folks within the area. Go ahead.
Your letters of support come from folks who are not superintendents of the school division. So how can we be assured that the school division, and just not the schools, are on board with this?
And I think that's going to be part of the communication strategy as we roll this out. And we're able to partner with BEC because they have representation in different areas. But at the same time, we will be employing our own folks and working with UMW as well.
Well, it may be a little bit, I guess getting the support of the school division after we funded the planning grant just doesn't make sense to me. So, you know, I think there's a little bit more work to be done in that area on this application. Have you reached out to all the community colleges which service Go Virginia Region 6?
I did, and because Kim is new, I've sent emails and I've left voice messages, but I haven't been able to get in touch with her. That was the first person to reach out to, was the Rappahannock Community College, but I have reached out to Germanna. Germanna has been one of our partners for the last 2 years.
Okay. Additional questions?
Yeah, mine was sort of similar. I think just since you've listed all the localities, a little more specificity on how you would reach them. It seems a little vague to me.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, we have a growth and development plan for Region 6, which you're shaking your head, you're familiar with.
Yes, sir.
You've not really touched on how you will impact any of the goals in that plan, which most of our applicants do, or we ask them to do.
Okay.
So, you know, again, your application doesn't tell us that. I think probably this, as I said, I think this application needs a little bit more work. If you're really sincere on reaching our goals and seeking funding from us, you know, getting some more meat on the bones. Ian, do you have any comments?
Well, I was going to ask a kind of a clarifying question that I guess is a question and a comment. So when we were having the discussions, we're developing the application, we were talking about, and you mentioned in your presentation, doing a needs assessment as part of the project, and then also piloting the project. I think that we, Sarah and I, and when we shared it with DHCD, had confusion around what that timeline kind of looked like and how those two things would happen in the year grant cycle. So I guess if you could kind of speak to that some, that was definitely an area. I mean, it can be difficult to do a thorough needs assessment in a year alone, but then you add, piloting something onto that. We were just really kind of confused about how those two things work, and maybe the suggestion would be solely focusing on one. But if you could just touch on that some, or for the rest of the project team.
And I think that's where we did take your feedback into consideration, and we wanted to focus on the pilot. We wanted to focus on the pilot along with the resource plan, because there was two things. You could either do the resource plan or the feasibility study. And because we were far along with the platform already there, what can we do to implement, take feedback, measure it, and evaluate it? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, additional questions or comments from the executive committee?
If you could, and I know we've talked about this a ton, I know you mentioned it, I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, but I think this is particularly acute because the Workforce Development Board, and this is something that you all need to consider. The Workforce Development Board just completed the TPI, just approved for another project. Jackie mentioned stackable credentials, the question around, we're really starting to get to a point where if we are, well, this is me talking, this is not the council, this is my opinion, where if we're investing money that goes towards credentials or exposure to credentials, whatever, we need to be assured that those are industry recognized credentials, and that we have some sort of idea as to how those are developed, the curriculum that goes into those, and that businesses are bought into them. So I guess, final time I'll ask it, can you just can you guys give us kind of a more holistic, global understanding of who's developing the micro credentials that you would use on the platform? What the interaction is with businesses through that platform as it relates to the micro credentials?
And once again, we're in the infancy stages. So the platform does have national certifications that lead to some of the industry clusters in Planning District 16. We have been given the authorization by the platform developer to add our own certifications for future occupations. So right now we're taking it as is. We're going to align some of the courses for IT, data, and manufacturing, since those are the two clusters that we are going to focus on for the pilot. So when it comes to development, we're going to be right alongside with CTE educators, administrators, our post-secondary, and our community colleges. Jim, do you want to add something?
Only that these very insightful questions are the reason that we are doing a planning grant rather than an implementation grant right away. But thank you for asking.
All right. Additional questions or comments? Does
We were asked, oh, pardon me.
Please finish your response.
You can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. We were asked previously about the distinction between things that are already underway, and Go Virginia Region 6 funded a very good program out of Ashburn, Virginia, in Northern Virginia called Jason Learning. And there are strong parallels in what we're doing with what Jason Learning is doing in school, but we are specifically after school because if you are a music student and a world languages student, both of which are important things, you cannot take these sorts of engineering, IT, and computer science classes until 11th grade when you've completed your physical education and health courses. So we are specifically promoting these for the out of school, after school clubs and activities that are sponsored by not only schools, but community groups as well.
Thank you.
I think we had one more. This is a question I think, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but that came up in the work group reviews, and also a question that we had and the DHCD had when we shared this with them. So, now that the focus is primarily around piloting this effort, can you just kind of talk about like where it would primarily be hosted? I'm assuming it's some of the, like, or Neck Technical Center, the middle school that submitted a letter of support, but where it's going to be hosted and what like transportation logistics would look like, because that was a concern that we had.
So for the pilot, we have letters of support from Colonial Beach High School and from Stafford High School. We will be engaging their engineering, construction, and manufacturing career pathway students and all other 12th graders that are interested in participating. And the same with Colonial Beach High School.
So kids from other high schools in Stafford will, after school, board a bus and go over?
And that's what I asked them, would they be interested in hosting? Because when we just did Chart the Future, all we had was 12th graders. We had 70 12th graders sign up for this program. And that's from 5 high schools.
Well,
So that's why go ahead.
I'm a little confused as to how that would work, because again, you have to have the buy-in from the school division to provide the bus transportation to get the kids from the other high schools to the high school where you're gonna be hosting. If that's not here, I guess that's part of the planning grant, but I mean, this is all very uncertain. And I think this application needs a little bit more work to clarify and think through some of those issues before we endorse it.
We did get a buy-in from Stafford High School. That's, yes, they have, the engineering CTE director will be accompanying us for the whole pilot.
But that doesn't take into account the transportation division of the schools, which have to provide that transportation. I don't want to drill down into that. But if we're funding a planning grant, I think you at least need to have those conversations with the school division as to how that would all come together.
We did, sir.
You had it with the technical person at Stafford High School.
The letter of support is from the superintendent of CTE at Stafford County.
That's not the superintendent of schools who has to oversees the overall school division and the transportation division and all the divisions of the school. Okay, that's just my observation. Okay, what's the pleasure of the executive committee in conjunction with this application?
So I think the project has potential to do something really great, but I'm going to go with the staff and John. I think there's probably some work that just some clarifications and tweaks, especially Ian and Sarah work with DHCD, and if there's questions and they're make sure they're answered. I think I'm going to go with the recommendation of staff.
And I would support that we defer this application until those questions are clearly answered. That's part of the application process. So among the executive committee members, is there someone wishing to make that motion?
I'll make the motion since I do. I mean, I trust staff and they work with the HCD, and if they know the project's gonna go up and probably come back. I'd rather have it right the first time.
Yep.
Than to go through all that.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to defer the application until the questions raised have been answered. We have a second. Any additional discussion? Questions or comments for the applicant? Okay, Sarah, we can call for a vote with roll call for the vote.
John Anzavino,
Support the, motion, yes.
Jeff Sapersky.
Yes.
Jan Urquhart,
Yes.
Jackie Davis, yes.
And please understand, this is not turning the application down. We need clarification. And you do have time because you're working towards implementation in a 25-26 school year. So our staff, we put a lot of trust in them. So if you'll work with them to answer the questions that are raised, we'll reconsider the application at the appropriate time.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you very
someone that's
much.
been through the process, working with staff to get those questions answered, especially the ones through that DHCD had, it'll be a great, it'll help you out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, let's move on to the new business part of our agenda for today. Ian, would you like to discuss the combination of the executive and nominating committees and creation of an application review committee? This is our first discussion on this item, and something which we'll be talking about in the future as well.
Yeah, so this is a two-parter. So the first part, combining the executive and the nominating committee. As much as we love spending time with John and Kim whenever we can, our nominating committee is now down to 2 people, and just logistically, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have a nominating and an executive committee. We also have really good representation from the entire Go Virginia region on the executive committee. So we feel like you guys, should feel empowered to kind of take that role on. This is a conversation we have at the executive committee anyway, but also for staff logistically, when we have a nominating committee, it has to be a public meeting. We can't do 2 back-to-back all virtual, so it just becomes really difficult. And we're gonna be in a time where we have some folks rolling off the council, and we're gonna be needing to bring some folks on. We still currently have 5 slots that we could bring on, and we're gonna have 2 more folks roll off. Rob will likely roll off, so we'll have 3 more slots. There are potentially some other folks who've been in the council, since the beginning or for quite some time who may roll off. But it just gives us a little more flexibility when those things happen, and just ensuring that we have a full council. Now we're in a good spot. We got to a point last year, when Billy left the council fully, when Linda left, we got down to 15, 16, 17 folks, and we weren't fully represented from a geographical perspective, and we weren't fully represented from an industry perspective. So this just gives us that flexibility. It would require we'll have this discussion at our January council meeting, and we'll have it then as an action item, but it would require a small update to the bylaws, because the bylaws do stipulate now that we have 2 committees, an executive committee and a nominating committee. So when we come back to you guys in January, we'll have that larger discussion with the rest of the council about this. And I would assume that none of them would take issue with it, but we'll also come back with a memo with what those updated bylaws will.
So would this be something that, let's say, if this had been implemented prior to today, that we would have on the same day when we're all getting together, we just roll from one meeting into the next meeting, not have to plan another meeting? Good. Right answer.
Would it be another meeting or just be?
No,
as an executive?
it'd just be the
Yeah,
same,
be
the same meeting. and
agenda item.
We
Yeah.
would, we
Oh,
would
okay.
just change from,
Okay.
because typically this body is, provides strategic direction, so any update to bylaws or anything like that, but really like the main function that you have is approving planning grants and serving whatever function in addition to the council. So yeah, we would just roll right into approving a slate of nominees to the council.
Given the difficulty we have with numbers and travel and time, we need to be in person for most of these meetings. And the size of the region, this makes a lot of sense. It reduces the number of meetings, committees, staff time, preparation, all of the factors that we need to consider as part of becoming a more effective governing body for the region as part of Go Virginia. And this is, I think, very timely, because we know, I think, from our schedules, how difficult it is to get to one of these meetings. Having fewer meetings is a much better idea. So
I have a question. Do you, as far as the nominating goes, do you prepare like a grid or something that shows current members and maybe areas of expertise or whatever that is, and to find gaps? Right, we identify gaps and then we try to then go find the people to fill the gaps.
Yeah, and we share that with and this I think will actually, by combining them, make this better too, because we'll have more minds looking at that, but we have an Excel that breaks down the industry, if they're private sector, if they're represented from the private sector, what industry they represent, and then within the 3 investment areas of Go Virginia: site development, workforce development, and entrepreneurial ecosystem, which one of those is a priority preference and then a secondary preference.
And
So
what sub-region?
Yeah.
And
what-
locality.
Yeah, exactly.
And also length of term on the
Yes.
council. Because that's
Yeah, that's really
that's another limiting factor as
Yeah.
well.
We have a
Yeah.
whole matrix, and I think we provided some of that in the last regional council meeting, and have
Yeah.
the 3 new members.
Yep.
But I think Ian and I both are wanting to see more representation from the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula.
Right.
Building that up, so.
Yeah, we, as, I mean, this is up to you guys, obviously, the full council. We've never really had I mean, it's not in our bylaws in terms of geographic representation. In my time, we've never had an in-depth discussion around geographic representation. The staff perspective, is that, we would have an even split, a third, a third, a third between the 3 subregions.
If we do that offhand, when we think of our clusters that are our primary clusters, does that make sense with that? In other words, do we have more clusters towards like the Fredericksburg region versus the northern? It seems to me we have more that are. Because I think if you're looking for people who have experience in those cluster areas, it may be harder to find them in various geographic, one end or the other. I mean, we have the same problem as far as some of our ecological and waterway issues. It'd be a little harder up in our Fredericksburg region versus further down in the region.
The growth, and Ian and I had this discussion earlier this week, the growth and diversification plan, we're gonna go through a major update in the coming year.
Mhm.
That'll be on the agenda for the January meeting. But the areas, our areas and our goals are really broad. And for example, Ian, you mentioned, we talked about manufacturing, which is
Yeah.
one of our clusters, that's got over 100 different classifications, standard industry classifications.
Mhm.
And they're not all applicable to our region. We probably need to refine that growth and diversification plan. I think it's been a good plan as it was originally developed and it's been revised, but I think we're at a point in our life where we need to begin to refine the document to become more focused. And I think that could factor into this as well.
I think that's hugely important because really one of the things I've observed in economic development, having a lot of economic development clients over the years, is businesses like to go where there's other like businesses.
Yes.
So we should really assess where we have strengths and build on the strengths instead of trying to find an obscure. And so that would be supporting more of our economic development efforts right now in the region.
Yeah, I think the thing that we can pull like Jobs EQ data that shows like location quotients and densities of certain businesses. I think the thing that we struggle with, and we were talking about this too, in the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula in particular, is a specialization. There's a lack of specialization in our Go Virginia region relative to other regions in general, outside of, IT, professional services in Plain District 16, the Greater Fredericksburg area. Outside of that, there's a lack of specialization. Some of the data can sometimes be misleading. So if we looked at the Middle Peninsula, we have a West Rock manufacturing facility there, and we have the Nestle manufacturing facility there. That skews the data. So you can see this huge bubble showing this great density manufacturing. Where you go from King William down to Gloucester, you're pretty far away and you have no manufacturing. So I don't know what I'm getting at with there, but that's like, that's the kind of thing that we try to contemplate, and I think we just struggle sometimes with just a lack of businesses, establishments in the northern neck and the middle peninsula.
And that they're a small business and they don't have time to dedicate. I had the same issue on our board. They don't have time to dedicate to leaving because they have to run the operations for the day. I mean, they're doing 50 things for their business.
But that's to your point of there being some difficulty in having true industry representation in all three subregions.
So do we, what is the process for updating the plan? Is it something staff does for us? Is it something?
Do you want to move into the next agenda item?
Well, let me,
As if that's the next agenda.
Okay.
yeah, that'll be on there, but let me just talk about the application review
Yeah.
committee real
Yeah,
quick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, our job is to work with the applicants and provide an objective review for you all. Well, let me backtrack. When we get to a regional council meeting, we come to you, I mean, this packet's 166 pages. Those are like 250. We come to you guys with an application, and we had this with that AI project last winter. Folks could be asking for $1 million. We have 2 work group reviews, which are an hour. And then we come to you guys, we tried to provide as much information as possible, but we're dealing with a volunteer board. It's difficult to get you all informed enough about an application to make a decision, particularly on a large ask. So 2 things we're trying to do, we talked about this at the last full council meeting. Sarah and I and the applicants use this, have adopted a new software called Good Grants, where this is what folks apply to now. There's a scoring component to that. We're trying to set that up so that members of the council can go in, you guys have a login, and you can score applications. The second piece to that is actually having an application review committee that would provide feedback in addition to our feedback to the full council on projects. And I think, that's been some feedback that we've gotten from members of the council, again, referencing that AI project. If there is a major ask of up to like $1 million, especially for something that's potentially obscure like AI, council becomes reluctant to approve that. So we want to create this committee. We don't know who would be on it. We need folks to volunteer, but to serve that, to have that additional layer of objective review of projects. And I mean, part of that is that we want you all, again, understanding that we're working within the context of a voluntary board, to have as much ownership of the applications as possible.
This is sort of my world, and it's for us, it's just like a loan committee. You have like specialists on our board who are hardwired to look at the efficacy of a loan application, and not just like does it make sense, like not the end game, but are the mechanics there to make it work? And I think having people on, I'd be fully supportive of this committee that can do that. Just questions I would have, would they have the ability at the committee level to deny a request? Or would they just, no, it still come up?
And honestly, we are partially copying a model that's used in other regions.
That was my next question.
These meetings, they would not take a vote. They would provide recommendations in the same way that we do. In the same way that staff does. So they would not make a vote. These would still have to come to the full council or the executive.
Which means we wouldn't need an in-person quorum.
Right.
So it's more flexible as well.
Yeah, and I think, in the past, even the couple people who've reviewed it, when it comes to the full board, the full board doesn't know that they've reviewed it. They don't speak to it or against it. I think a little more formality, if it goes through that process, that it would come and rather than have the full board try to shoot holes in it, that, or, not shoot holes, but you know what I mean, question.
That's
Tom-
tough questions.
Yeah, that they would come and say, when we reviewed it in committee, here were our issues, here's the questions we asked, and just sort of give it so that it's quasi vetted before it comes to the full board, because when you get the full board, it becomes cumbersome, I guess is the best way to put it.
If I may,
exactly, and.
The
go ahead,
Good
no, go.
Grants, yeah, will allow they can go into the Good Grant software, they'll have their account, and then they can go into the application and ask questions and score, and then we can provide that scoring system to the full council
That'd be great.
with their feedback. And I think, like Ian said, with our funds or per capita every year, we don't have those rolled over funds anymore.
Yeah.
This will help determine too, we need to reduce a budget on one or something of those natures.
Yeah.
Well, and as much as, we love that you guys trust us, we don't want to.
As far as you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, as far as you know, but we don't want to come to a council meeting and I'm not saying that this happens, but, it can happen with boards where we have some sort of like group think effect and everybody just kind of votes either to approve or deny something because we suggested it or because of whatever. And again, using the AI project as an example, that happened and we didn't have this full objective review other than ours. And the conversation snowballed and it got deferred. And in my opinion, that was a major hit and set us behind in terms of, investing in something that is really important now and is impacting every industry.
And I do think, like I mentioned earlier in the meeting, that committee be invested with the responsibility of what's in the pipeline. In other words, we're not just, this is good, but we have a potential great one
Exactly.
coming. You don't want you want that to be scheduled properly.
At the risk of sounding really stupid, I haven't been on the board as long as some of you, and I find in serving on when I'm part of analyzing a grant request at the committee level, sometimes I feel like I haven't been given the overall perspective of that particular segment of the industry and what the needs are of it and what else is out there. I'm having to kind of try to think about my contacts and I think it would be really, really helpful to have a better understanding of the global picture. Because if we need to go and defend it to anybody, or I'm talking to a public official, I need to to be able to say, well, these are the needs of this industry, other than just, broadly in our area. And this is where that helped fill that gap. We sort of get to it, but I kind of feel a little uninformed walking in on the initial, to talk about maybe, you see what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, I think that.
You're not alone.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that we always struggle with, particularly for workforce. We just had the conversation around credentials. And the context that we work within, the only our major concern is this a duplication of other state efforts? Not necessarily, we get industry feedback, we get letters of support, but fully understanding, is this meaningful to industry?
Right.
Especially, we're 8 years into Go Virginia now, when we really start to take a step back and assess how effective has this program been? How effective can it be from a state and a regional perspective? That's the thing that we really need to be concerned about.
If I may, I think Ian's done a good job of trying to broaden our membership on the council.
Yeah.
To more industry, we didn't have anybody from cyber or IT, and now we have Vernon. We didn't have anybody from aquaculture, now we have Taryn, who's also IT. She's
And
AI
all
certifications
things.
and all things, she does everything. But I think that being a discussion of the nominating committee is trying to get more representation from those industries on the council that can speak to it would be helpful.
And, really fitting industry objectives and needs. Fitting into the state plan, fitting into our own regional growth and diversification plan. Knowing how that all fits together, I think is really important because, the governor has spoken on workforce development about how all we have had a number of different workforce initiatives over the years, all with different metrics, all with different focus points, and nobody really knowing what the outcome was other than how many jobs did we get or something like that, if that. And so maybe we need to begin to think a little bit more globally beyond the growth and diversification plan of ours, how it fits the state as well as industry objectives as well, based upon Jan, that you said, what are what's happening in the industry and how does it fit the needs of the industry. This is getting really complex, and I think these are good tasks for the application review committee to work on, as well as for us to concentrate on in the growth and diversification plan.
And speaking of that plan, do we, I'm assuming that we involve our economic development folks locally in doing the plan?
We're gonna talk about that plan in just a second.
Yeah, we can close out.
Okay, but
I'm supportive of that committee, and I do think that
Yeah.
committee, John, I think, back to the very last agenda item, I know staff probably does it at the state level. There's gotta be some synergies between all the other regions that we're not creating our own wheel here.
Yeah.
It's like there's,
well,
a little more, not uniformity, because we're all different, we have our own separate plan, but from a process perspective, we shouldn't be sending stuff up to the state board that gets rejected.
Yeah,
Without an
well,
inkling that it's gonna be rejected.
well, we could have a retreat just on that topic, and I can share a lot of opinions with you that the only thing that I will say on that is that we have sent, including your project that was deferred, several projects that the council has fully endorsed that, I mean, we share them with DHCD. In my opinion, there is nothing wrong with them, and this happens to all other Go Virginia regions.
Right.
So, but in terms of process, yes, we do, and we have a support org call with the other regions led by DHCD, but we also have our own call with the other regions. It's kind of a new thing and more organic, but yeah.
Both these items that we're talking about, the combination of the executive committee and the nominating committee and the creation of an application review committee are consistent across the state. General, is that correct?
That is.
Okay,
And then-
so we're coming around to being consistent with the rest of the state.
Oh, good.
Not that we want to be the same,
Right.
but, this makes sense.
Yeah.
We have to, and we're still an evolving organization, so, okay. So that's gonna be on the agenda for discussion at our January full board meeting. Okay, action items, using contingency funds to develop the 2025 growth and diversification plan update.
Okay, so we are requesting, we currently have 73,464.75 cents in contingency. We keep that there for this. It's easier to keep it there than in consulting. We're just requesting that you guys approve a budget amendment to shift it over to consulting needs. So that we can put an RFP out and do the update to the plan. Once we get into the timeline is likely looking like. So we have some other things going on that could be complementary to this. So we're trying to figure out how those play into this. So Plan District 16, we have the comprehensive economic development strategy. We just got funding from USEDA for that. Rivers Regional Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Council is doing what is a planning effort. There's an entrepreneurship piece of the GND plan, so we're trying to figure out where they're going to be so that we can just incorporate their information. But that'll play into what the RFP looks like. I think timeline wise, I would have preferred to have an RFP out and have you guys approve it at the January council meeting. Have the contractor approve. It's looking like we'll probably hold another executive committee meeting virtually in early February. We'll introduce the topic to the council at our January meeting, But hope to get somebody under contract to do the GND plan update, in early first few weeks in February. If you guys approve them, and then to your point, part of that process will be stakeholder meetings that we hold.
All right, so we need a motion to move our contingency funds into the consulting line item.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute,
Yeah, since it's money, it has to be a roll call. No, that's okay.
I'm not, my other board, I'm used to just voice vote. Okay.
All right, John Anzavino,
Yes,
Joseph Safarski.
Yes.
Jan Urquhart.
Yes.
Jackie Davis.
Yes.
All right, unanimous, motion carries.
okay, final item under old business. I'll give you a quick update on the Go Virginia State Board Regional Council Committee. There was a discussion, and I attended virtually on behalf of the Go Virginia Region 6 Board back in early November. The state board is really trying to implement and deal with the findings in the JLARC study, which I think you all are familiar with. And one of the things that they want to do more of is collaborate and create new opportunities for creativity and links between boards statewide, sharing of information, and also building the talent pipeline. You know, we've struggled as a nominating committee. I'm one of the nominating committees with the 2 members of finding members and building that pipeline. And they're talking about ways that they can help foster that through identification of potential talent for board appointments, for getting information out to potential board appointees so that they can understand better than what our staff does. You know, and I think our staff does a good job. You do a good job of providing that background when we do have a potential nominee. But maybe a little bit more concise as to how we can better develop a pipeline through some additional information. What we lack in Go Virginia Region 6 is a designated appointee to that council. Now, this is being taken up for the formal recognition of this region with the Regional Advisory Council Committee, or whatever it's going to be called at the state level. It's being taken up, or was taken up at the recent state board meeting. Was that December? Is that December 11th?
That was this week, yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. I don't know what the outcome of the vote was, but I would assume that the recommendation that came up to the state board from committee was probably approved.
It was.
It was?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're seeking is a formal appointee to that regional council. The concept is it will meet 4 times a year at various locations. It may be that it can be a virtual attendance, it could be an in-person attendance depending upon the location. Typically, the meetings will last probably about 2 to 3 hours. And so, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for us to become more tied to the other regions in the state as well as to the state board. Our problem has been, and Ian and I have talked about this, Jeff and I have talked about this with Ian as well. Who do we get? We've sought members to serve on as our designee. And we're having a hard time coming up with folks because of the busy schedules that folks have. So what we need is somebody to serve on that council committee. And I think it's going to be very important to link our region to the other regions in the state. Ian, you want to add anything to that?
I mean, the only thing I say is that I don't really foresee this as being an action item today. We need to have another conversation, I think, that starts with some emails to the full council around this topic. I mean, to John's point, we don't really have an idea of who this person would be.
I'm kind of serving in absence of a formal appointment because we need someone to do this. And, you know, but Jeff and I, as your chair and vice chair, come from the southernmost part of the region and going out to Bridgewater for a 2-hour meeting out of our days is kind of a hike. And we were hopefully seeking someone from the Fredericksburg area, which is a little bit more centrally located. But we've been unable to come up with any potential candidates from our board. So if you would think about this, we want to make this, I guess we'll receive formal notification from the state board that this group has been appointed.
What I'll do is I'm gonna be out on leave tomorrow through next Wednesday, but at the end of next week, I'll try to send out an email to the full council to wrap things up for the calendar year and update you guys on the 2 projects that were
Good.
approved, update from this meeting, and then provide some information on that and what that would look like. I mean, we've talked with some folks, like we talked with Joel about potentially doing the other thing.
Yeah, that was immediate thought in my mind,
Yeah.
is Joel.
Yeah, the other thing that's in play though, ostensibly, is the state asks us, the speaker's office, we're the only region who has no representation on the state board.
Yeah.
That's not our fault, that's their fault. Every other region got representation organically. 9 was the last one to get representation, that was last year. The Speaker of the House's office reached out and they were like, we need people like tomorrow.
Yep.
We submitted a slate to them, representative of each of the subregions. Joel was one of those people. So if Joel, was nominated, then approved by the state board, then he would not be able to be part of this.
Yeah.
So that's at play as well, and that really feeds into the broader conversation of us having an actual relationship with the state board outside of this new committee.
Yeah, but the curious thing is they needed the information immediately. The speaker did. We submitted that information almost immediately with the nominees, and we still don't have a decision. And that was what, 3 months ago?
Yeah, that was.
That's during the summer.
Yeah, we were at your board meeting and I was at the
Yeah, so, here again,
Yeah, so and that's a separate topic, but
Yeah.
that does kind of play in this.
Anyway, couple comments. I'll say this falls in the nominating governance function that we'd be bringing in the executive committee. I think there's enough. I mean, if I have a question mark over the efficacy of this new thing, I know everyone else does. I think it's part of us to get, we didn't even know whether they had to be in person or, that's sort of a big wild card. But I think once we get more delineation over what this council does, we need representation. Here's how they meet, and here's why it's important to us. I think we might be in a position to sell it to our members, but I think it's vague enough now. I can't commit to that. I don't know. That's my impression.
Is it business representation you're looking for?
Somebody from the council.
Just someone from the
from the
council?
council.
That's separate from the state board, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
separate
Yeah,
from
two
the
different positions.
state board nominee.
And the invitation to that meeting, as Jeff said, Jeff and I talked about attending. It was pretty loosey-goosey as to, okay, well, we don't know, it could be, and it might not be.
Somewhere in the Shenandoah Valley.
Shenandoah Valley.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a big valley.
And we didn't know, the duration of the meeting, it could be all day, overnight, and then.
Nobody's gonna sign up for that. I mean,
Well, I think the state board has realized, from what I'm gathering, that they need to establish stronger ties to the regional councils, and regional councils in many cases some are feeling a little bit left out of things and they want to improve things. And so this is one way to get to that. I think it's going to be a successful advisory body and to the state board for anything that seems to be percolating up from.
I mean, if it's
General
helpful
district.
and I can do it, I would serve it for that.
Yeah, and the outcome of the summary outcome that I received from the person at the state board who convened the meeting was.
Leah Fremont.
Yeah, Leah Fremont was 4 meetings a year, but we don't know the duration and, we don't know how they'll be rotating, things like that. I would expect that will be coming after the state board, if that was approved.
It just once it doesn't conflict with my board meeting.
Oh, absolutely.
This, and I mean, I could do that as part of my role as the director for the workforce.
Yeah, and I don't see how they're gonna hold them without them being virtual.
Right.
I mean, there are 9 regions in the state. It's just not. It's not feasible.
Can we get more specificity before our January meeting of what it looks like so we can make a better
Yeah,
informed
We
decision?
will, yeah.
And then as far as the member, the representative on the state board, is that something that Jacob could help you with?
To find a business?
Yes.
Well, so we submitted Joel, Rob. Cause Rob's been asking forever. Jimmy Carter and,
Oh, Carlton.
It was just 3, wasn't it?
oh, we submitted 4.
No, I think
Yeah,
it's-
you,
So you don't need help with that?
no, we don't.
Okay, all right. What?
Well, unless they totally forget about it and we need another.
I'll volunteer Jacob and tell him just to work with you and figure out what you need and.
Can carbon date the recommendation?
Yeah.
All right, so expect this to be, when we come to the full board meeting, another discussion item with some more, as I say, meat on the bones in conjunction with what it will entail or a volunteer from our council to form.
And John, maybe
serve on the regional
if we let this person and maybe also have like a first alternate, like to address Jackie's, like if I have a board meeting,
council.
we've already, no?
Yeah, what I heard was that they want a commitment from somebody to be there 4 times a year. And they don't like the thought of an alternate because then the consistency between board meetings and information flow will begin to break down.
But if like if it's a conflict with a board meeting, it'll be a no-show. An alternate's better than a no-show, you know? I wouldn't think we'd do the alternate only if the person could not make it.
Well, we have to wait and see what the state board's criteria are. So, and I'm not sure that's gonna be in the general wheelhouse of qualifications of sending, a primary and alternate. I just don't know. It's an interesting group. There are expectations that are laid out and, this will work. Oh, who cares about schedules? These ours, okay. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit jaded.
Well, and I know we're over, but it is important, I just can't say that, I mean, part of the reason that I think that the staff and the state board have done a commendable job in responding to the jailer report.
Yes.
However, this initiative is a direct response to the JLARC report, of which some other things were not addressed, the changes in Go Virginia, but so this is really coming out of that. So I think that they're in a way kind of throwing some stuff at the wall and they still don't truly have an understanding of what's going to work. They just want to go back and say, yes, we have addressed these recommendations.
Good.
Well, if I can help, I do have the flexibility,
Thank you.
and I know our business folks don't, so I don't mind.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, any additional discussion to jump on that item or for the executive committee? Oh, thank you for your attendance today. We needed attendance first and foremost. Thank you for all the attendance of all of our applicants. Hope you enjoyed your time listening to all this stuff. Got off a couple of tangents, but we value your participation in the process and Go Virginia, and we look forward to working with you now and in the future. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? Yep, thank you. I have a motion second. Any further discussion? As I had a chairman on one of my boards used to say, well, if you're in favor of the motion, stand up and leave.